All right, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Wired Sound Podcast. Today we have a special guest who's actually the head of one of the biggest labels, and he's been an absolute titan in the industry in the dance music world. We have Sebastien Lintz from Revealed Recordings. How you doing, man?
Doing really well, really well.
Yeah. So tell people a little bit about yourself. You know, we've had a lot of DJs, but not a lot of A&Rs or heads of record labels.
Well, I actually started as a DJ.
Okay.
When I was 12 years old, and then I got signed, I think when I was 17, to Spinning Records, and start sending out demos to other labels. And I had a manager back then that pitched one of the songs to Revealed Recordings, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in 2012. But first I started with remixes and doing a bunch of things and all different kinds of genres, like subgenres, like progressive and techno. I didn't really know, like looking back now, it's like I was so like, all over the place, my sound.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a manager. Nobody told me what to do. So I was just making what I felt that moment, And then I got one song with Revealed. And then starting to know the team, actually played a show in Miami in 2012. One of my first international shows. Didn't know anything about Visa, so it was like really stupid, because I was on flyer. So if the border patrol Googles you, you're screwed, So that was really like not so smart. I made a lot of mistakes, but then I got into the team, and I got stuck in the studio, my parents' place, for weeks, no inspiration, and I was like, I should probably find a job or something, but I didn't want to work somewhere else. Except music. So there was like a small job vacancy at Cloud9, which was the distributor of Revealed at the time. And then I got a job and then really started from the bottom, like doing data stuff for 6 months in the summer, just label copy, and then I just brought in more ideas, and then, the label back then did one release a month, and I had the crazy idea to do 2 releases a month.
Yeah, okay.
which is now is like, wow, two releases a month is like nothing, But back then it was like, wow, but how are we gonna make sure we're gonna promote it? And
yeah, it's such a different landscape back then.
So different. This is 2013, by the way, and we went through a lot of, we went through the EDM boom, of 2012, 14, 15. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know at the time it was a special thing,
Yeah.
It's always hard to, if you're middle in a storm, to see where you're at, And then we worked a lot, I think, in that era also. But and then we just grew the label from 2014 till now still. And and it's still my day-to-day job. And we do a lot of different things now. But this is definitely the main job is definitely like keep Revealed relevant, keep it big, invest in the branding. Get big artists on board and have the best music for Hardwell to play on the sets. But we have a lot of sub-labels, so it's different than 10 years ago.
Yeah. Do you guys do like weekly A&R meetings and kind of going through records, or how are you sourcing your demos?
Yeah, so I'm not really part of the day-to-day A&R team anymore. I was the A&R for a long time, but then it's just impossible
to do it all,
to be part of that process because we get so much demos. So now we have actually 2 A&Rs full-time, and then Hardwell, and they have a meeting bi-weekly. They go through all the demos they receive, and then we have a platform where people can submit demos. And that's a whole process. It's like first phase, second phase, third phase.
Yeah,
and then,
to get through.
Yeah, in the 4th round, then they'll discuss it in the meeting with Hardwell.
Yeah.
But every song that's released on the main label, at least, is signed off by Hardwell. A lot of people don't know that, but he's really
needs to get that sign off, before he gets released.
It's really important.
Yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job with artist development that a lot of labels are not focused as much on anymore, especially in the dance world. I feel like the mentality is just like chuck out whoever's relevant and see if it sticks. But I think you guys are actually
trends and,
you guys are doing great investing into the artists.
It's a really different, because we're owned, by an artist, and we're not on the stock market like Warner or other majors, There's no pressure from the board or the share price, or anything like that. There's no pressure to maximize the income, and we have to chase the next TikTok hit. There's nothing like that. We just, the A&R team, especially, they just listen to the demos and
does it fit the Revealed sound?
Fit the sound, and in the past we have been a little bit distracted sometimes by the artist profile, etc. But then we had a big strategy meeting a few years ago, and we're like, no, let's go back to the roots. And even if there's it's a starting artist, and if we think the song is so good, we're gonna put it out on the main label, not on the talent label, you know. And Hardwell can play it on the Ultra, and so we changed the strategy and a little bit more, and just focus on the quality and on the music. And it's definitely harder. It's you know, it's not easy. It's easier to sign the next TikTok talent, or you know, artists that already like have Spotify support or DJ support. That's harder, but we discover like raw diamonds, and that's really fun to
and
work
then
on.
Your fan base, the revealed fan base, comes along because they could trust that you're just going to put out what's best for the revealed sound and everything.
Yeah, they keep the label sharp, you know. They are really, you know, it's maybe not like hundreds of thousands of fans, but the fans are really engaged. They you know, they're a big fan of the label, and you have to follow your sound as a label. You have to stick to your brand. You cannot go left and right and sign anything that works, you know. Because then you don't build any diehard community. You know, we have a big Discord channel. I believe we have over 10,000 Discord members. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that. And we have a really great merchandise, you know, fan base. So if you go to any event, you see the fans wearing the Revealed shirts, and that's amazing.
You build an ecosystem, your own world, and like I think that's what a lot of artists miss too. Is like you have to build a world around you that people can be a part of, and kind of.
Yeah, that's actually my advice right now to a lot of artists that are either blowing up or maybe not blowing up, but they're like they forget it. They're doing a lot of TikToks. They do a lot of great things, but they don't have. For example, now with Instagram, it's super easy to. You know, to start a broadcast channel, for example. And of course you need a certain amount of followers, I think 10,000, but there's exceptions. But there's a lot of big artists or smaller artists that don't even do that. They just focus on getting new fans, and they don't really serve the real fans, the diehard fans. And they're actually really important. Also for Spotify, you know, they look at those data points. Like how many
like hardcore fans.
Yeah, how many
acquiring new ones?
Like of your song, how many profile visits? Like how many streams come from your own profile? How many streams come from your library? How many streams do you get from editorial playlists? You know, if you're heavy editorial, it's actually not a good sign. You know, and a lot of artists, they're like, oh yeah, but I'm doing so well. You know, like I get a lot of streams from editorial. Like that's actually not a good thing.
It's not what you want. And and I don't think talent buyers want that. The people that are booking clubs don't want that either.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
That they're going to show up to your show.
Exactly. It's very passive. You know, passive listeners. They don't really. They're not going to really follow you, buy tickets. You know, if you're on a big playlist, it's great for discovery, of course.
So your advice to new artists would be to like create this own world. Through branding or through like the content they're doing, or just the sound, everything. It's all. I always say it's an ecosystem. It's, you know, you can do branding is really important because then fans know where you stand for, how you look. They have to, you know, if you look like cool, and they get inspired by your looks, or maybe like, you know, whatever it is, cool pictures, get intrigued by that. That's important, you know. But it's also important to give them a certain piece of content. That's maybe not meant to you as well.
Yeah, and a lot of creators or like DJs and producers, they make content, and then, you know, they only have 100,000 views, and they think the TikTok or Reel bombed. You know, like, oh my god, so I gotta delete it. But if it's serving the diehard fans, that's totally fine.
Yeah,
you know? And it's
an important mentality shift to have, as opposed to like I need a million views on this video to pop off as an artist. Like we just had Prappa on. And he was saying, oh, his TikTok's not popping off that much. But I was like, dude, I see you all the time on there. And that's why I got him on this podcast. And obviously his remixes are getting played everywhere. But so I think you don't realize as an artist that sometimes what you said, if you're even reaching 1,000 people, it just might be the right people. And that's the stuff that actually
getting
people
more and
come
more
to your
important,
shows.
Because we pay, you know, we have a lot of influencers, of course, we pay and they promote our music, and it's really not about the views. You know, sometimes we get I work with artists that have like hundreds of millions of views on Instagram, but doesn't convert, 0. There's like maybe an uptick, you know, on streams, but it's nothing sustainable. It depends per country where the views are coming from, of course. But, you know, we rather work with small micro influencers and
that are relevant to the brand.
Because you need to hit the right audience. You know, you need to. And it's very interesting, I'm really obsessed with this. You know, like. Hitting the right metric, you know, and it's also like part of that is it's important because if you hit the right audience, you're basically training the algorithm. TikTok, but also Spotify and Apple now, and Beatport. Everything is trained on a set of fans. Mm-hmm. And if you have fans all over the place, the system don't really understand.
Doesn't know where to place you as an artist.
Exactly. So,
and then it won't know what playlist to put you in and all that. That's interesting. Yeah, I never
if you
really
hit the
thought of
right
that.
mark, like, if you're spot on with the audience, and it can be 1,000 people.
Yeah.
You're giving the algorithm enough data to blow you up with other recommendations. So, for example, if you have fan A, listen to Dobransky, Dom Dolla, whatever, and you make similar music like that, if you focus on playlists, but also influencers and DJ support for similar, what they are getting supported by, that's more important than getting 1 million views.
Yeah.
Because then Spotify knows, fan A listens to Dobransky, Dom Dolla.
Let's refer him. Yeah.
Let's also give him this other artist because fan B listens to Dom Dolla, Dobransky, and artist X. And that's how it works. It's
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have so many. I'm sure meetings with people on that side of the industry that it's really interesting to hear that perspective.
Yeah, you just test out. It's all testing. It's not set in stone. And tomorrow it can change.
Yeah.
It's,
I know. Marketing is a constantly evolving thing, right? As an artist, and it's so important. And it's it's unfortunate. I think for a lot of artists, we don't love the marketing, but we understand. No. I think the ones that succeed understand that it's essential. You can't be a big artist today without marketing your music, because how are people going to discover it?
Yeah, but it's also like some artists, they're in a position they can afford. Let's look at Calvin Harris, right? Mm-hmm. He's not posting 10 TikToks a day. He doesn't really care. But I can assure you, his team, his label, they're like going all in with like making sure the song is posted. And that's stuff you don't see. So it's not always like you have to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. But you gotta get to that level.
Yeah, that's easy because they have money. There's they have budgets, etc. But if you're starting out as a DJ, you don't have that. Mm-hmm. You need. That's why I think labels. Because a lot of people are like, you should do everything yourself and 100% of the revenue. And that's great if you have the fan base and everything else. But if you're starting out as a producer and DJ, you should use a label as a marketing tool, and doesn't cost you any money really except points. But you don't have to invest anything. They will do all the work for you. They will invest. You can push them. And I think that's smart. And then the next one, after a few releases, then of course you can do your own release.
Yeah, once you start
but
to build up.
If you don't have the time and money, then use the label.
Yeah.
And that's and the labels don't mind because they get a few records. Mm-hmm. That's the business model. And then if you wanna do something on your own, that's fine. But I also believe, for example, Revealed, like we always serve the artist in any phase there are. For example, I think Maddox is the greatest example.
Maddox has had a massive couple of years.
But we worked with him for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So it's like he started as demo of the week of Hard on Air.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah.
What year was that? Do you remember
It must be like 2014.
Okay.
So
it's like around when I had my demo of the week at one point a long time ago.
And that was for us, demo of the week was without signing an artist, it was also like a way to test out the song and see how the response is. And also just create a platform for the artists and give them a shot,
Yeah.
And often, people love the demo of the week more than the released or unreleased music that's already signed, because it's like the underdog psychology. Like this talent needs to blow up, like we need to support them.
Yeah.
And we look at that, and the artists with a fan base and support, they really push for, you should sign, Maddox, and then you go in a whole journey of like, you do like a. So usually it's like demo of the week, back in the days, demo of the week, and then you get on like a talent EP.
Okay.
And then we see the results, see how it goes, but also how it is to work with artists. It's not just about talent. Mm-hmm. It's also like, is he responding to our emails? Is he providing us tools?
Okay.
Is he, how is he personally? Is it nice to work with him or not? It's not just about the biggest talent. It's also about the person, and talent can come in many forms.
Yeah, I think that's like that in like the club environment too, because clubs won't rebook an artist even if they're massive. I mean, it depends, but most of the time,
let's forget about the 1%. Of course, the 10 mouse and all they're fine.
Exactly. But if you're an asshole to the people that booked you and the staff, you're not going to get rebooked there. So I always tell that to DJs as well. It's like, be friendly to everyone.
That's
be
actually
genuine.
Hardwell always mentioned that. He said like, that's like retention play also. You want to get booked again. So it doesn't matter if you play for 5 people. That's really what Hardwell always told the artist. Like if you play for 5 people or 5,000 people, it needs to be the same quality because you don't know who's in the crowd. It can be the next agent. It can be a booker. It can be a promoter. It can be a label boss that's really interested by your sound and he just wants to see you playing live. I think it's a little bit less than compared to 10 years ago, but you always just give 100%.
Yeah.
110%. Like it's really important, and also be super nice to people, of course, and open, and also the artists that are doing really well, they're responding to all the DMs, or comments.
The fan engagement.
And it's a lot of work, I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's a lot of work. But I've seen great success with that. Like a lot of big artists, they take the time.
Yeah.
And there's no, it's like Gary Vee, like it's 2 cents, like you're if you're on the toilet, you can do it,
Yeah,
There's time.
Just take
in
the time.
There is time to do that. And one little DM back of a fan, it's hard to imagine because we're so deep in the industry. But if your text, well, I used to, when I was 16, I actually DM'd Hardwell, and we didn't know each other. He was playing at a local festival, and I asked him, what was the first song you played in your set? And he responded like that.
And you're like,
on Twitter. I was like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. Like, and there was no Shazam back then, I think. So it was like a little bit different. But the fact he took the time to respond.
Yeah.
I was
Do you remember what song it was?
I think it was Duck Sauce.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
But it was really cool. And it was, I think, before it was released. That's why I didn't know, because I knew all the records.
Isn't it so crazy? We've seen like the come up of like the biggest dance songs that have ever existed.
Yeah, I've seen.
I always think
seen
about that. It's to have been a part of it.
Yeah, I was. I'm with 2 artists. We spent a week in Fort Lauderdale. I'm 2 artists I manage, and we were just like, we went to Top Golf, just for fun.
Yeah.
And then it's the aux game, sharing the phone, Bluetooth, and I was like, I was like sharing old music because I told them like I think you get more inspired by old music than to new music, because if you do new music, you're always behind the curve.
Yeah.
And if you listen to old music, and one of the songs was like Fake Blood. I don't know if you know this, probably, but Fake Blood. And I think I like it. It's a song name. It's like a disco electro house track. Do you know it? And the artist, he was only 19 years old, so I don't blame him. But he's like, this is amazing. I never heard this song.
What song?
And then I went to the next French house song and the next song, and he was like, he was Shazamming, writing
whole
down
new stuff.
and he was like inspired in different ways. Although he
Yeah.
doesn't make the same music, he was inspired like, wow, this synth, this acapella. So I was also like, for me, it was like, interesting. I should listen to more old music.
older stuff. Yeah.
Because everything comes back anyway, disco house and French house and everything is like 8 years, 10 year cycle.
So are you doing management as well? And
Yeah, I do a label. So I'm director of Revealed, but we also started a management company a few years ago.
Okay.
Really started during COVID. A lot of managers couldn't really afford to, manage artists because there's no revenue coming in. And for a manager, the biggest revenue is shows. Not necessarily Spotify and other income. But for us, we were not really pressured by that, because we had our business, our label business going on, which was very predictable, income. Very stable. And although it went down during COVID, it was not like 100%, nothing compared to promoters.
The live show,
because that was insane. It was like 100 to 0 in a few months. So there were some artists that needed new management, so we started getting into that, and we also started getting into different genres of music, because we, not a lot of people are listening to dance music anymore. It makes sense, because if you're at home, you're not gonna rave in your living room, the whole time. But if you're like going to parties and events, there's pre-games and there's like stuff going on. There's like, birthdays and stuff. That was all gone. So dance music was going down. So we start doing all kind of other stuff like lo-fi and piano and also other subgenres. Like we have an Afro House label, we have like raw style, we have hard techno, we have techno, we have everything you can imagine, and basically everything that the Revealed's not really touching, And but Revealed also, we've been also growing into different genres, because it's just the time is changing, but it's not under the Revealed flag, It's, for example, the label of Medics is under Revealed is like, distributing that. So Ecstatic Records. Yeah.
Was the Gasoline song? Was that one of his first on the label?
Yeah.
Cocaine.
Ecstatic.
Yeah. Such a banger.
Yeah.
I love that track.
Yeah, that's a really big track. Like John Summit plays it, everyone plays it.
Yeah.
It's a big song. And that song is still growing.
That was one of the first on his sub label, or was it?
I think it was the first, one of the first. Yeah.
Okay.
His Ecstatic was still unrevealed, and then
It's a big way to make a first impression.
But we didn't know at the time. It was we actually nobody expected what happened to Minix. It was timing, but he was making big room and he wasn't feeling it anymore. Like genuinely didn't feel it. And it was before techno was taking over, and he was like, I want to make something deeper because he's going out with his friends. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to these events anymore, So his personal taste was developing, and he's like, I'm not
connecting with the sound.
Yeah, I'm not connecting with what I'm making. There's a misconnect, and that's why you start experimenting with techno sounds. And it was before, it was a long time before everyone was kind of like moving into techno, and then TikTok blew up, also, and that really helped the first record, Ecstasy. Because that song went crazy, and then he was really good with socials, so that really helped him. But it was really the music, to be one of the first.
Sound.
Yeah, we had of the curve, and a lot of people try to do that sound now. But it's always a cycle, right? Mm-hmm. There's always new genres coming up and that, coming up. And
but he's the original, or like
look at Oliver Heldens, you had Chami, Oliver Heldens. There's always one or two, that's defining a new subgenre. Same with emotional house now. I work with a guy called Lumine. There's Boond. Mm-hmm. There's It's Murph. That they are like a new wave, of a subgenre. But after that, it gets a little bit. Another guy tries to.
It gets a little bit overdone, so and then people, like, I've heard this 10 times. Yeah. Why would I go to the knockoff version when I can go to the original?
Exactly. Yeah.
So your advice for that would be what? Just making what you like and kind of.
Well, that's the hard part. You cannot predict a genre.
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is like to make something you love, of course, but try to be up to date with the techniques. Try to not follow the trend, but try to make it your own. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if big room techno or techno is getting more popular, try to maybe get inspired by that. Not copy other people, but get inspired by that. Get some elements in the songs and. Or just follow, or just create something that you really love listening and use that for your own records. You need to be unique. That's very important. So you always have to find your own angle. If you just, of course you can copy someone. If you do it really well and a lot of volume, then it might work, but you probably won't get booked. Because promoters, they know, he's just trying to.
It's a copy sound.
It doesn't mean it's not gonna mean it's not gonna work on Spotify. But we all know these people that have 10 million monthly listeners or 5 million on Spotify, but have 0 bookings. Like that's not what you want, But if that's what you want, then that's fine, It's the strategy. But then you need to follow the trends because it's just what people are moving towards too. For example, I work with a lot of hardstyle producers. And artists, and for me, it's a fact that a lot of hardstyle fans, they move to hard techno. Hard techno kind of reinvented the hardstyle sound.
Yeah.
This is what I think. This is not facts, So, but so what happens? A lot of fans are listening to different kind of sounds, and all these hardstyle producers, they stick to hardstyle or they jump ship. And that's very tricky because hardstyle is very tricky.
Very subgenre, hardcore.
It's very, hardcore. And I think that can be a mistake because if you then follow the sounds, then you lose your core fans. Mm-hmm. And you will not get them back easily. That's really hard, So if you jump ship and then suddenly make techno,
people aren't going to follow.
That's really hard, That's very risky. But I have artists that work with talent from hard techno scene. And they kind of get inspired by that. They do a collaboration, but they don't go all in. But they take a little bit of collaboration, and that's smart because then you lean into their fan base without giving up your core fan base, and the productions are still very true to what they do. Okay. I think that's the best way to describe it. And you never know. Maybe there's a cycle. It's 2 years. Techno is maybe down, and then.
So you think dance music, like the relevant sound, always cycles in a period of 1 or 2 years?
I can describe every year.
I'm hoping progressive house comes back finally, but
I don't think it will come back in a way that like from 2014. But I think yeah, good music, good music will never go away. And I think the good thing with progressive house, there were such strong melodies. There were actually strong songs. For example, Manse had a big song called Freeze Time. That's just a beautiful song.
Yeah.
If he would have released it today, it would be different synths, maybe. It would be more emotional house, but the song would be the same, just different, maybe less intense, less open, synths, less mid, but the song would stay the same.
Yeah.
So and what's very interesting now that all these older songs and older artists are coming back because they see, wow, I have a big catalog of amazing music, amazing songs. I can do something with that. I can reinvent it, and that's what happens now a lot. A lot of labels are buying old music or other artists.
Yeah, something that has that nostalgic feel to it.
Because they know they can bring it back because the songs are freaking good, The good song doesn't change.
And I just played with Thomas Gold the other day at Chemistry over here in Fort Lauderdale. And it was interesting to see his set. He crushed it. Yeah. But he has so many nostalgic.
He toured with Street House Mafia. He was one of the first progressive house artists, and he's playing Revealed show on Thursday.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he crushed it. That was a great set.
Yeah,
but I hadn't seen him play for a little while and stuff. So it seems like he took a hiatus for a bit.
Yeah, I think the music. If they focus on the song, maybe different, jacket. I would say in Holland, different jacket, different style. But keep the core sounds and the chord progressions. That's not going away.
Yeah.
You just have to.
Yeah, because people have nostalgic memories attached to these songs. So
they
rework them and stuff. And
they should do that 100%.
Yeah.
The music is so good.
I know. I'm thinking about it bringing, because I think we're almost at the point where the early 2010, dance tracks are not as relevant or they could be reimagined.
Well, now they're that's why we promote Legacy Destiny concept Revealed, because now we're kind of a legacy because we've been around for long enough that it's it's more like classics now. The 2010 it's been a long time ago.
15 years.
But 5 years ago was a bit too okay, that's from a few years ago. But now it's been 10 years, 15 years. So it's just a cycle. I think now it's time to bring back, and that's actually what we're doing with Revealed. We're bringing back a lot of those old. Big room hits, and then new versions, new remixes to work on the catalog and bring fans a new sound, but keep the nostalgic feeling.
Yeah. I saw Luso's been releasing a lot with you guys, right? Yeah, I think he's from South Florida, but
Bocon.
Boca. So same area as me.
He's playing the show also Thursday. And,
okay.
And
I'm always DMing with him. I don't think I've actually met him in person. Though.
Yeah, he's actually we're actually working on a podcast for Reveal to tell these stories. And he's gonna be one of the hosts because he's moving to Amsterdam.
Oh yeah, sick.
Super cool, and he's a super nice guy and a crazy story also. Working finance and
interesting journey.
Super journey.
But awesome, man. Well, anything else you want to let people know about with Revealed or just life in general that you got? Maybe some tips for an aspiring DJ or artist out there.
Yeah, I mean definitely the biggest tip is to keep your community, grow your community. You need to show promoters, Spotify, Apple, everyone who's involved in the music business that you can drive your own fans, and you're not depending on other playlists, etc. And think about your social media game is definitely important, but it doesn't mean you need to do crazy dance moves, and just be very, very smart with that. If you don't have the time, if you don't like to make content, that's fine, but get someone else involved, manager, or maybe it's your neighbor. There's no excuse, but you need to go out there and find a new audience. Because playlists, in general, if you compare to 5 years ago, there's more than 50% less streams coming from playlists. Depends on the playlist, of course, but let's say New Music Friday. So playlists can be not relevant anymore. Even Release Radar, people don't really check Release Radar anymore because it's so all over the place. There's different genres. It's not really a nice experience to listen to different kind of music. It's not true for diehard fans because they want to discover the latest songs. But it's all moving towards algorithm. And people really have to start thinking about how can I train the algorithm in my favor, and what can I do to influence that, because that's going to be the new game, for sure.
Okay. Fucking hack the algorithms. That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome,
authentic,
man.
Authentic way. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you again, Seb. It's been awesome speaking with you.
Yeah.
I'm sure
pleasure,
we'll see you a little bit more during Music Week, but excited to see what Revealed has planned for the future.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks again, brother.